Hyperdrive Hockey is brought to you by the Game Over Network. Make sure to follow us on YouTube at Game Over Network and catch Hyperdrive Hockey in audio format on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other good streaming platform. Hello, beautiful citizens of Planet Hockey. My name is Max Van Noot. Welcome to another episode of Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network. We are available on Game Over Network's YouTube channel. Please subscribe, hit that like button on that show right away. Drop a comment to help us. And of course, if you catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite streaming platform, make sure to drop a review, subscribe, hit that bell, anything to help us grow, and we thank you so much for it. Along with me today, of course, Daphne Malbeuf. Daph, how are you doing?
Good, Max, good. And I feel like the Montreal Canadiens fans are having a hell of a day today regarding the win against the Edmonton Oilers yesterday.
Well, better than Edmonton, that's for sure. Of course, that game was on Monday night, a rare Monday night for the Montreal Canadiens. Behind the board, the Mix Master, Funk Master Flex, Kevin Laramie. Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I wish you would have told me. You would have done that. I would have got a couple liners and be like, but no, I got nothing off the top of my head. I'm not a rapper.
That's okay.
But Funk Master Flex, underrated album in late 90s, 2000. Funk Master Flex, big cast. It was quite a mix.
You are a man of culture. You are a man of culture. Guys, I'm not doing good today.
Why? What's happening?
I feel like Anakin Skywalker when he was admitted to the Jedi Council as the Emperor's special envoy, but not granted the title of Master, to which he said, "That's outrageous. That is unfair." And that is how I feel with Alex Ovechkin injuries on Monday night.
Yeah.
It is outrageous. It is unfair. And I fully, 100% blame it on Kevin Laramie. That's his fault. He doubled down on Ovi not beating Gretzky's record this year. Ovi was going to do it. He was going to do it by Christmas, the way he started this season.
Basically.
But Kevin jinxed him, sent him a potion or whatever. I don't know. A dolorous spell. And Ovi is injured. At the moment we are recording the podcast, we do not have the news yet regarding the severity of Alex Ovechkin's injury. We are waiting for that. That did not look good. Whenever there is a knee-on-knee contact, and especially a player of Ovi's caliber and of Ovi's durability, going down like this and not coming back, oh, good Lord, please, Ovi can't be injured. That it can't happen.
And if you're McBain today, you're like, this is not a good day to be me. You don't want to be the player that injured Alex Ovechkin, even if it was kind of, accidental.
It was purely accidental. It was purely, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but there were screenshots of comments on Jack McBain's Instagram right now.
Oh, yeah.
Shame on you. Freaking shame on you, people. Like, What are you doing? What are you, like... it disgusts me. So that people basically not threatening him, but insulting him on his Instagram page. Come on. Like, it was clearly an accidental contact. That's number one. And number two, even if it wasn't, you should never go there. I'll leave it at that. You should never go there. Even if it's Ryan Reaves hit on Darnell nerves, whatever. This is a line that should never be crossed. That's interesting regarding Ovi's injury and regarding the fact that he has been so durable for his entire career, because later on the show, we will talk with Kay Eman of Game Over Montreal about specifically the glorification of Shea Weber's injuries, actually, if I may speak like this, because in his enshrinement to the Hall of Fame last week, a lot was made about the amount of injuries he played through, particularly during the 2021 Stanley Cup playoff run of the Montreal Canadiens. So Ovi, being himself such a durable player, so far, as far as we know, has never really been injured, but we don't know. That would be a shame if Ovi had to play through a bad injury this year simply because of the record chase. Honestly, that's going to be interesting to see. But hopefully, nothing is wrong with him, or too wrong with him, actually.
Yeah, and we know like he's been a machine his entire career. He's made out of steel, I feel. Really, like he's indestructible. Like he's yeah. So he's been having, like if we're looking at his record, he's played his entire career at maybe kind of full capacity all year long. And you're looking at it and you're like, but he's 39 years old. And this kind of injury, it's a knee injury.
That would hurt.
That would hurt because you're not recovering as a 39 years old as you were as a 28 years old player.
That Coca-Cola medicine, though, with Ovi is not neglectable. You never know. I would just like to say, Daph, that it's a lower body injury. We do not know that it's a knee.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Of course, I'm kidding.
I need to be...
regarding the injury protocol.
No transparency there. Okay, maybe it was its ankle or his leg.
Maybe. We don't know. But technically, the knee is part of the leg.
Yeah. Yeah, we could say leg injury. If we want to be not too transparent on this one. But
yeah, if we want to be vague. But all jokes aside, Ovi's weekend, technically the second game was Monday. Ovi's 24-hour prior to the injury, a hat trick on Sunday, and then a 2-game performance against the Utah Hockey Club. Look, I'm on Ovi's side. I'm not the biggest Ovi fan. Like, I enjoy his greatness, just like I enjoy Sidney Crosby's greatness. I have no how do you say this? I have no dog in this fight regarding Ovi and Crosby. I love them both. I am not a Washington Capitals fan. I'm not a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. So why the heck would I hate any of them? They're both amazing. I'm so grateful to have seen them both. But you know what? I never, even in my wildest dream, thought that on November 19, 2024, we would wake up with Alex Ovechkin, leading goal scorer in the NHL, with an over 60 goal pace. We're almost at the quarter mark of the season. The man is rejuvenated. I don't know if it's just a fun factor because the Washington Capitals are good. It seems to uplift Ovi. We see him saving goals almost on the goal line right now. And this is why the possible injury to me sucks so much, is because it is my favorite story in the NHL so far this year. Honestly. Alexander Ovechkin doing what he's doing at 39 years old. You know, there is LeBron James right now tearing it up in the NBA. There has been Tom Brady completely dominating the NFL way in his 40s. And now to possibly see Ovi on the one side doing this, maybe Sid on the other side doing his thing too. I don't know. Maybe it's just me not wanting to let go of what has been an amazing 20 years in the NHL with these two. But I would be really bummed if we're talking long-term injury regarding Alex Ovechkin. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I know Kev is happy because he doubled down on it, but jokes aside, I'm really disappointed by it.
I don't wish injuries on anyone. That's what I want to make sure that it's clear. But I'm a mathematics guy. I'm a statistics and probability guy. And the probability of this injury would have happened at 39 years old, or any injury during a long season, was higher now than during his heyday. And I think that's where my thought process went. And I just want to go back to one thing you both mentioned, how he's been playing almost at full capacity his entire career. I also think his lifestyle and how he trains for game might be more suited for longevity than what we've seen from other players. He's not spending 10 hours in the gym getting the biggest muscles and becoming super ripped. He's basically taking an off season. He drinks his pops. We know, we've seen it in the Stanley Cup and all.
Goes to the beach with a dad bod, which is amazing.
Well, the
body positivity here on this podcast.
Yeah, the dad bod itself actually might be more suited for longevity because you are better hydrated. You don't lose as much muscle fat and the strain on your ligaments, basically. is not as high as others. We've seen the plethora of ligaments injury over the last 15, 20 years, and that's when there's been a big difference in how players get ready.
Yeah.
They used to go to training camp to get in shape. Now they never stop basically training, and I think his summer lifestyle actually helped him be able to play 80, 82 games on average almost in his entire career.
That's
And
interesting.
I need to find it again, but I've tumbled over an article that was saying that the dad bod is the new thing, like for athletes.
For athletes,
yeah.
okay, because I was gonna, well, that's interesting, because I was going to be like, well, it's been a thing since Leo DiCaprio on that yacht.
Dad bod is good for everyone, okay? But no, but especially like, yeah, for and I don't know if it was just hockey players, but whatever. I need to search for that again.
But there is such a thing, number one, as overtraining. That is really true, what Kevin is saying. I know PK Subban's talked about it, how being such a gym freak might have actually injured his back. That's one. And two, with regard with what you're saying, that your training regimen needs to be adapted to the sport you are practicing.
Yeah.
This is what is so fascinating with ESPN's body issue every year. The perfect body for marathon is not the perfect body for ice hockey, which is not also the perfect body for swimming, and et cetera, I can go on and on.
Yeah. But anyway,
I didn't mean to interrupt you on the. I didn't mean to interrupt you on that. Sorry, I just meant to add on. Sorry,
I had like a brain bug there. But jokes aside, on the dad bod, I feel like we don't want the Hollywood scenario. Like, what are the gods of hockey are sending us? What is happening? I mean, I'm a fan of, you know, a good scenario, a good and you know, at this point, I was really scared that he was going to achieve and beat the Gretzky records this year.
You were scared?
Because I was scared because I said he wouldn't do it.
Okay.
And I was like, it would look really bad. And at this point, I'm just like, you know what? I want to see him do it. Whatever my prediction was, I'm not standing my ground here. I'm cheering for him to go all the way. You know, I'm going to be the cheerleader there for him. And I'm just like, what are we seeing right now? Like, I'm really, really scared of what can happen with this injury. And also, you know, it's going to affect the morale. And we don't want that. And we want him to achieve, I feel, his ultimate goal this year. And I don't want it to be a long-term injury. But I'm like, what are we messing with? Who is messing with this perfect scenario?
I am willing to negotiate a sacrifice of some sort with the hockey gods for Ovi to be okay. No living alive. Yeah. Well, actually, I guess that's not. Yeah, I guess that doesn't work. I guess a sacrifice technically.
Yeah, it needs to be.
Live.
Yeah.
Okay,
but maybe you could sacrifice your own knee. I don't know.
My what?
Your own knee.
Oh wow!
Are you willing to do that?
Oh wow! Okay, so in the chat, in the comment section, we're not live. There is no chat. In the comment section, what would you be willing to sacrifice for Ovi to be injured less than 2 weeks? Let's say. I was going to say alcohol for a whole year. I don't really drink alcohol that much, so that's too easy. What would I be willing to sacrifice? I would sacrifice. Okay. I would sacrifice pizza for a year.
Oh.
I eat pizza probably once a week.
That's a big sacrifice.
In fact, I have a cold pizza slice in the fridge that I'm going to eat after this show. I would sacrifice pizza for a whole year to make sure that Ovi has no injury this year and he plays 82 games.
Okay, I will be willing to sacrifice listening to Taylor Swift for a whole year.
Oh, is she number one in your Spotify rap year in, year out?
Yeah, okay. I think so.
Wow. That's huge. I would not say, to me, it's Blink 182 year in, year out. I would not say, maybe I could for a year.
Yeah.
I could do that too.
You're willing
Who would you sacrifice, Kev?
Well, if I may, in my Spotify, Peppa Pig is #1 for me, but there's different reasons why.
Probably a lot of parents just related to you right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it would have been a good thing to be rid of Peppa Pig for a whole year.
Oh, that is so hilarious.
My Spotify Wrapped has nothing to do with actually what I listen to. That's what it's.
That is so hilarious. A few years ago, like one of my colleagues, like when Spotify started, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, I don't remember when it started, but like I was like, hey, look at this, look at it. And he opens his phone and I'm like, wait, what was it? It's nothing. It's all children's stuff. And
yeah, exactly. Anyways, I'm thankful for YouTube's algorithm, who's actually dismisses all the kids' things you might watch. So that is very helpful. But if I go back to Ovechkin, I would sacrifice, like, I think pizza's a good one. My brain could only think about food, sacrificing like my lunch or something. But I also think I could say I'd sacrifice being right. So I'd rather he comes back.
Oh, that is good. That is really good.
And does it, then that I am right and he won't achieve it. Because I don't want him to not achieve it because he got injured. That's a terrible way. That's really not what I want. What I really expected was him, because he's been streaky over the last few years, so I thought he would go on a run like he's now and then be cold for 15, 20 games like he has last year and then come back. But you put a stat, Max, in our document that is very helpful, very interesting to me. The goal scored through 18 games in his career. 15 this year, that's the highest he's ever done. 2022,
that is nuts.
That is nuts. 2022, 2006, and 2010, those were the first 18 games of those years. He did 14. And then there's a couple drop-offs. Sometimes he had a little bit of a slow start. But 15 goals in 18 games for him, that's really impressive.
Oh, guys, as we are talking, we have the update.
Oh, no. What is it?
Capitals captain, and this is from the official Capitals PR account. Verified all you want. Capitals captain Alex Ovechkin sustained an injury to his lower leg during last night's game in Utah and is listed as week to week. Oof, this can be tough.
Ooh.
I don't like that because week to week can be Connor McDavid, who initially we thought was going to miss about 10, 11 games, ended up missing not that many. Week to week to a knee can be Carey Price, all the way back, 8 years ago, who was supposed to be out week to week, never came back of the season. I don't like this. You know what? It's honestly almost better than I thought because it really didn't look. Those type of, because the hit in itself wasn't, if you have not seen it, it's not something you go, oh, like you, but you just looked at him and you were like, oh no, something's wrong here. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
The way he was just like standing, on his knee on the ice and just like not being like in overly pain, but just like, oh, I know something is wrong in here and doesn't look good. And I feel like week to week can also imply like we need another medical advice on this and could go under surgery.
Yeah, I agree that, and I also think that week to week means there's too much inflammation today to actually know what is going on.
Yeah, he's going to be reevaluated on Wednesday afternoon, I think, is what they wrote. So
that doesn't sound good.
Yeah, on Wednesday. Oh, please, good. I'm bummed. I need please drop your dog pictures in the comment or something. I need dog pictures.
If you look at the first comment underneath the post, it's kind of hilarious and sad at the same time. It's the meme of Buzz Lightyear saying no when he falls off a cliff. So yeah, it's a sad news.
I feel like everyone, like me, even the players around the league, because I don't know if you saw, guys, that The Athletic published their first player survey of the season, and they were asked, like, would you like to see Ovi break the Gretzky's record? And 98% of them said yes. So I feel like it's a bummer for every player around the league. They were stoked to see Ovi achieve that.
You know what was my big question after seeing that survey? Who?
What?
Who's the 2%? I want to know who you are.
Me too. I'm
Who
like,
are
I don't
you?
care. I don't care if it's anonymous. Who are you?
Who
I feel
are
like you're a
you?
horrible person, and I need some explanations also.
Did Kevin have a vote in this? What the heck?
It was me and Sidney Crosby together. We decided to.
You know what? I would actually believe Sidney Crosby if he answered the survey, voted yes, he wants to see it. I would be really surprised. You know who might be that? Because I think they asked 40 players. So, I don't have access to my phone's actually filming me right now. I don't have access to my phone, but like 1% out of 40 is pretty much the 2%, right? So that's 1%. I'm calculating. Yeah, exactly. So 1% out of 40 is 2.5. So 1% said no. I know who it is. Gino Malkin joked about it. So he said no because it's his friend, and he joked about it. That's it. That's Gino. Gino did it. I'm officially bummed out. This is really disappointing news. Hopefully, Ovi is not going to miss too much time. And you know what's You know what is crazy here? There is a big irony here, and this is how we're going to close this discussion regarding Ovi. But one, there are many reasons, of course, but one of the reasons Ovi is chasing that record is durability. The guy has barely missed any games due to injuries in his career. It's crazy. A 20-year career now. And Kevin talked about it earlier about how, we made fun of him sometimes, but how his lifestyle might actually have helped. Also, maybe just good genetics, who knows. But how ironic would that be in the worst way possible if what keeps him from the record is an injury at the tail end of his career?
That would be awful.
That would suck.
Here's a quick resume. 2005, 2006, first year of his career, 81 games. Year after that, 82, 79, 72, 79, 78, 48, but then 78, 81, 79, 82, 82, 81.
Yeah, but
exactly.
48 was the shortened season.
Exactly. So that was going to be my point. And same for 2020, 2021, 45. So the only time where he's not in the high 70s, if not 82, is a lockout or a shortened season, which doesn't happen too often.
Exactly. Completely. All right. So on this very sad note, we're going to go to other stories around the NHL. Let us know how you're feeling about this. Also, Gino Malkin, if you're listening to this, please admit that you are the one who voted. No, I don't want to see Alex Ovechkin break Wayne Gretzky's record. Let's go coast to coast. Let's go around the National Hockey League and elsewhere on the planet.
Guys, yesterday we learned that the Toronto Maple Leafs forward, Ryan Reaves, has been suspended 5 games without pay for the illegal check to the head of defenseman Darnell Nurse. He was also fined. And he's been known for his questionable hits. He's been suspended 3 times, total of 6 games, 3 playoffs games. He was also fined 3 times. And I know that this is a polarizing debate. Whenever we talked about vicious hits, I feel like there's team, it was a clean hit, has the NHL being softer and softer all over the years. And there's people who are like, no, it was a high hit and this needed to be punished. And I'm curious to see where you stand on this one.
Whenever a coach defends his player after a questionable hit, as disappointing, I guess I could say, as a human being it is, I feel like it's normal. I'm trying to think how much of a dirty hit it would have to be for a coach to come out and go like, what an idiot or whatever, like, and really be... I think that's normal. You're the coach of the team. I feel like it's part of the job description to, at the very least, like, do a PR job of trying to, like... With that being said, we all saw the hit. It was directly to the head. Don't go and watch it in slow motion if you have not, because it's really scary when you watch the hit in slow motion. The way Darnell Nurse's head went back, I really did not like seeing this. With that being said, I am usually one who hates that argument, but in that case, I really did not like how many steps Darnell Nurse took, looking straight at the puck and not lifting his head and not see that you. That is something without. I don't think the game is getting soft. I don't think. I do believe that officiating the game and suspending players a decent amount of games for dirty hits is a much better way of fighting dirty hits than fighting. Whatever you want to think about this, it's okay. This is where I stand on it. But I do believe that younger players, I think, are not taught how to protect themselves properly. You can't like, and as I said, there are instances where I completely disagree with it. I had a big argument with my dad in 2021 when Mark Scheifele did that Jake Evans hit.
Yeah.
So my dad was like, the heck is he doing? What do you mean? He's wrapping around on an empty net to clinch a game in the playoffs. Absolutely in no way should you be thinking, oh, a guy is going to come at me 100 miles an hour from center ice to destroy me. Dive desperately? Yes. Unlocked? Yes, but no. But in that situation, yes, Darnell Nurse was clueless. That does not justify the hit. That does not mean the hit wasn't dirty. But maybe if Darnell Nurse has his head up a bit earlier, the intent is still there. Maybe the suspension is less longer. I don't know. But at the very least, maybe he protected himself a bit more. And I do have just a bit of a gripe with this about how I do. What I'm trying to say, basically, if I can resume in 5 seconds, is I agree that dirty hits should be penalized for what they are. I don't think that justifies players not protecting themselves in the way that they play.
Yeah, and it's been the case, with the Trouba hit on Justin Barron just earlier, with the Montreal Canadiens earlier this season. People were wondering if he should have been more careful about, entering the zone with his head totally looking down.
He should.
But at the same time, I'm like, you're Jacob Trouba and you're not allowed to do this vicious hit.
Oh, that hit was perfectly fine for me. On Barron? Oh yeah, he went through the chest. I remember that one night. It was a case of that's, to me, I'm open to being wrong, but to me that was a hockey play. Not Darnell. Well, yeah, but Ryan Reaves. That's not a hockey play. To me, Trouba was, and don't get me wrong, Trouba is playing way over the line, way too often. But there is still a place for a good, solid check in hockey to me. Just like it is in American football, there are ways to deliver a clean, brutal hit. Of course, when you are a player like Jacob Trouba, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. And it's normal that you feel like it wasn't legal because it's Jacob Trouba. Like, remember when Kel McCarr got suspended against the Kraken? That was 2 years ago, I think. No, it was 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
You're watching this and you're like, oh my God, Kel McCarr did that? Like, you're almost trying to find a way to justify it, like, and be like, it's not that bad, but actually it is that bad.
Yeah.
That's because he's Kel McCarr. He has no history of vicious hits. He has no history of being dirty. The opposite is true too. When Jacob Trouba delivers a clean, brutal hit, your first reaction is to go effing Trouba. Oh wait, no, it was legal. To me, it was, and it's debatable. It was a very debatable hit. That I think is not debatable if it's not Trouba, but he brought that on himself by being a dirty player most of the time.
If I could add on Ryan Reaves also, you talk about the clean hockey play. On this play, he's not even trying really to separate the puck from the player. He's literally trying to separate the player from his head. So there's a big difference here.
Yeah.
Completely agree with that.
It was high. It was high. But I kind of agree with you, Max, that both of players have a responsibility in
exactly. You know what? Like, what I'm trying to find an example that could. Okay, I got one. So it's a bit of a weird one, but 3 weeks ago, I'm going for my beer league hockey game on Monday night. I get into my car. I'm sitting in my car, and I'm like, something's wrong here, and like all my stuff from the dash. How do you say the real word in English? The the box on the passenger side is out. So basically, someone got into my car, and I'm like, "What the heck?" I'm looking at every window, going like, "Somebody broke in my car."
The glove box?
Nobody. Yeah, the glove box. Thank you so much for having my back on this. No window is broken. I forgot to lock my freaking car. This is the first time it happens in my life. I forgot to lock my car. Of course, like whoever, and nothing was stolen, by the way. I had nothing of value with the car. They didn't even steal my cell phone cable. I was happy about that. But the person is not right coming into my car because it wasn't locked. But I was dumb for leaving my car unlocked. You get what I mean? I brought that on myself in a way that doesn't justify what was done. But I'm the idiot who forgot to lock the car. So in a way, I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off the track here, but that's how I would compare it.
No, you're right. Both sides have responsibilities, and we need to talk about it. Another thing, Max, we need to talk about. I feel like we talked about the greatness of the Jets since the beginning of the season, but looking at what the Carolina Hurricanes are doing, I feel that they are demanding respect, and also looking at what Martin Necas is doing, like he's demanding respect, and we need to give him. I feel like, okay, looking at in 17 games, 11 goals, 19 assists, 30 points, plus 10. Who could have predicted that he would be trailing off behind Mekinen and Kaprizov in the third place for points halfway through November? And we're talking about the guy that we were looking to trade during the summer. Well, 28 teams were looking to get this one, and I feel like some kind of those teams are biting their fingers off now.
You have your answers to who could have predicted. Because if somebody could have predicted, he would have been traded. Like 28 teams, apparently, according to some insiders, at the very least called for Martin Necas this summer because he was available. He was openly available, had asked for a trade, and 28 teams inquired. So the Hurricanes is 29. So that means 3 teams didn't inquire. But if one of those teams knew that he would hit that ceiling, somebody would have said yes to whatever price the Hurricanes were asking. Honestly, that is absolutely impressive.
Yeah, nobody was willing to put the assets, and I don't know why. This is still a mystery, but nobody was, or maybe they were asking too much for him, which would be perfectly understandable because he's 25 years old, and you know that you could have the best of return for him. But nobody, I'm just really surprised that nobody was, willing to put whatever was necessary to get him. I feel like we didn't saw him coming or just getting at the top where he's at right now. And maybe if he wasn't with the Carolina Hurricanes, maybe he wouldn't have that great start of the season. I don't know. But what are the other team didn't see in him that the Hurricanes did for asking maybe a lot for him to get traded?
Well, I think, as you said, he's in his mid-20s, his best season in the NHL. I was going to say before this year, but technically the season ain't over, so he hasn't beaten himself yet. But still, it's 70 points. He had 53 last year. Like, we don't know what was the asking price, but if they were asking, a real number one game-changing wingers price, of course, nobody was going to pay that at that moment. But good for him. Honestly, what I respect here is he talked the talk and now he's walking the walk. He asked to be traded because he wasn't satisfied with the role that he had. He was mostly a third-line player last year, playing mostly second power play. And he was like, I am worth more than that. Trade me right effing now.
If it wasn't for the injuries with the Carolina Hurricanes this season too, if we're talking about Seth Jarvis and other big injuries, maybe he would not have the playing time too. So that is
a
also
very valid point.
Exactly. And also over the last 4 years, he's had decent beginning of the season in his standards. He had 17 points last year after 16 games. This year he's had 27 before his 19th game, his 17th game where he had 4 points. So there's a lot of things that were not foreseeable that are just blooming this year at 25 years old for Martin Necas. And also the increased playing time. This year he's playing 17:53. He's playing 17:21, but I think it's the power play time. He does have 4 power play goals. And to me, the 11 power play, 11 assists, in regular play, but 8 assists in the power play. So that's 12 of his 30 points in power play. That's close to half. So that may be where the answer is.
You know what? He had 13 points all of last year on the power play. He has 12 so far this season.
Right there. But he's proven, as you said, Max, he's proven that he deserves this playing time. And if we are looking at the Hurricanes, just saying they're second all around the league in points percentage, just behind the Jets at 765. And they're also on a 10-game streak where they're having success with 8 victory, scored 68 goals. And their differential is plus 27. I mean, they're having... I didn't saw them like at this point having that kind of a beginning of the season, but they're on a good path.
Somewhere,
on a good path.
Don Cherry is cringing. Bunch of jerks.
If we're looking at the standings and looking at, maybe teams that are overdoing it or underdoing it, I'm looking at the Oilers, Max, and I'm wondering, and we were all convinced that the Oilers will still Stanley Cup, not even contenders, but one of the favorites this year. And I'm looking at it and I'm just I'm not so sure that I'm convinced anymore. Are you still believing that the Oilers are one of the top contenders and they could surprise us?
From a purely official standpoint, they're still tied as the favorite with the Carolina Hurricanes at the moment of recording this podcast. With that being said, the Edmonton Oilers, because of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, rarely drop far in betting odds, which is absolutely crazy. With that being said, I gave myself a deadline of January 1st for both the Oilers. Colorado, I'm already starting to, not writing them out, but really questioning how they can overcome their problems. What is so surprising to me regarding the Oilers right now is before Monday night's game against the Montreal Canadiens, they were tied last in the league on the PK with the Detroit Red Wings. As of the moment we are recording, they are 31st. Remember, their PK was one of the main factor in the playoffs last year, all the way to the Stanley Cup final. They were amazing on the PK. They've been there before, so it's less bad than last year at that same point. So yes, to me, they're still part of the favorites. It's not as much Oilers and the rest in the Pacific as I thought it was going to be, but I still have not written them off yet as a, let's say, top 5 teams in the NHL.
Okay. I feel like they've been so wildly inconsistent. I don't know. I don't know if I'm a big believer anymore. Interesting to see what the Oilers may or may not do in the next few weeks to be able to maybe turn things around. We're going to welcome someone new today from the Game Over of Montreal, Kay Imam. We've been talking about, injuries, and she's made good point about glorification of players who are playing during injuries. Should they be seen as heroes, or should we try to change the culture there? I feel it's a complicated subject.
And we are now joined by Kay Imam of Game Over Montreal. In light of last week's Hall of Fame ceremonies, a lot was said about Shea Weber, and we learned a bit more about the extent of injuries he went through at the end of his career, particularly in the 21 Stanley Cup playoffs. And Kay went on an interesting thread on the social media on Saturday night when Shea Weber was inducted in the Montreal Canadiens Ring of Honor. Kay, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you for having me today. Excited to be a part of this discussion.
Yeah, it is a really interesting discussion to be had. It is one that has been coming through a lot these past few years, not just in the NHL, but in pro sports in general. I want to say particularly in high contact pro sports. And especially regarding hockey players, we know how much pain threshold, playing through injuries is not only common in professional hockey. I kind of feel like it's celebrated. And just so people know what Shea Weber went through, there was a very good article by Stu Cowan in the Gazette. It all started with his broken foot in 17-18. He played on it at the start of the season for a few games. Turned out that playing on it led to multiple other injuries. And Stu Cowan, in an article, says that maybe if Shea Weber doesn't play through this injury, maybe he's still playing today, which already in itself is something very interesting. But first, to set the tone, I want to come back on what you wrote on social media this weekend, and I'll let you a bit maybe like explain yourself on it, your thesis, if I may express myself like this, because you talked about all the details coming out and how much Weber went through, how nobody on the team knew about it, how it made you not happy, but it made you understand how important it was maybe to change the medical staff after, because for those who are not from Montreal, Montreal, after a few years of being the most injured team in the league, went through a medical staff overall. How did that make you feel to learn all that, and why it led you to the medical staff in itself?
So first of all, I love Shea Weber. I have since before he was a Canadian. So if anything, it made me respect him a lot. I got a lot of my information from an article on The Athletic from Arpan Basu. And it just made me feel like a deep understanding and a deep, as fans, we have this initial, like, why did he play through that? But I think it's a little deeper than that, and I think we'll get into that. But essentially, first of all, it made me really respect and care about the player himself. But then I started thinking a little bit more what the details of the situation meant in terms of the dynamic of the training staff. So with the training staff kind of agreeing to hide what he wanted, kind of going by his terms, and him letting him set the standard of what medical care is, that kind of looking back at that made me really concerned, thinking about a team this young, full of, guys in their early 20s with this, like macho need to both that the age that comes with that, but also being a hockey player, right? Like those are two things. So I thought about, what if we had staff like that working with a team like this that's still, in this phase. And it made me really concerned. It made me think about, it made me obviously, I'm never happy someone lost their job, but at the same time, I think this is the move in the right direction, because I don't want like Nick Suzuki playing through God knows what because he wants to keep his Iron Man streak and the staff just letting it happen.
That's interesting. And, to me, the big question regarding this and regarding let's talk about the training staff first and then get to the hockey player standpoint is, I've always wondered from an ethical standpoint for those training staff, because when you're on a training staff, whether it's the team doctors, whether it's just the physiotherapists and all the therapists with the players, technically when you're in that sort of practice, your goal is the well-being of the patient. That and only that. But when you are an employee of a gigantic professional sports organization, we have seen now through documentaries, through stories that have come out, how many times that those training staff actually have the GM, the coaches, even sometimes the owners behind their back going, you put that player back, in our case, on the ice, on the field, no matter what. So there is this duality right there from an ethical standpoint that is very interesting. But then there is also the fact that most players will tell you they want to play no matter what. And to me, this has always been a question that I struggle with because, obviously I'm not a professional athlete. They're all adult. They were paid a lot of money to do that. So where is the line between protecting the player from themselves, doing what is right for the human being, doing what is right for the club? I've always felt like it is a really, really weird line, a weird position to be in for those training staff.
And if I may, Max, I feel like it's all about the culture, all about the hockey culture, because it's really hard to be the person that is saying, okay, I'm gonna take some time off because I'm injured and I cannot play anymore in the playoffs, when you've grown up in a world that asks you to play through injuries. And it's all about culture, and it starts from a very young age. I can relate to stories about players that are 10, 11, 12 years old and are already in that culture of I need to play through my pain. And I think it starts with that. And it's complicated for them to just admit that they are injured and they don't want to, they want to take some time off because you feel like you're letting down your teammates.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that. And the thing is, when you look at a player like Shea Weber, to me, I don't know if you guys watched it a few years ago. I think it was in 2020. There was this documentary on TSN called The Problem of Pain. One of the main player in this documentary is Ryan Kessler, who, I mean, isn't that old. He's a guy in his 40s. He's in a way, a contemporary. He's a player who was active basically yesterday. And for those of you who have not seen the documentary, just a bit of context. So Ryan Kessler, in his early 40s, needs to go to the bathroom way too many times a day, can barely play with his young kids because of the injuries he sustained, but also because, regarding his digestive system, of course, of the medication he was taking. When he was a player, he was told, you take that, you'll feel better. Okay, cool. I take it and I can play tomorrow. He was not told that taking this for a long period of time would lead to chronic problem so early in his life, which brings the question, whose responsibility is it? Is it his? Should he have asked more questions? I'm on the side of course not. You have a professional who you think is there to take care of you. And I had a bit of I was a bit surprised, at the same time, I'm saying this. We know the man. I wasn't that surprised to read that Shea Weber says, and again, this comes from Stu Cowan in the Gazette, he feels the pain right now. He does feel the pain, but he would trade it for absolutely nothing. I don't know if he'll still feel the same in 20 years from now. Good for him if it's the case. But I feel, Kay, like this is the perfect example of a player who did what he thought was right. And how can we blame anybody else but him for this? And I say blame, but it's not even blame because, as I said, he's comfortable with it at this time and moment.
Yeah. I guess that's the big question, right?
It is.
I think we can all be here for hours trying to figure that out. But I think, like you said, there is one of the early things that I don't think. Okay, let me put it this way. I think that there was, I understand that what happened to his tendon. So there was a tendon injury that he had that was a little rarer that I think that the staff just didn't pick up on. That's on the staff. You know, that like that's just medical. Like they weren't they didn't do their jobs. But when it comes to just playing through it, to me, it's the hiding it. It's the fact that like that the team staff is abetting a player in his decisions, that they're like enabling him, I guess, rather than putting all the information out there. Because God knows, then like the GM or the coach might still be like, okay, you can play through X, Y, and Z, right? But the kind of the hiding it is something that like on that particular case, like specifically just speaking about Shea Weber, not having the transparency between the team, the player, and the staff in the middle, that's kind of what makes this case so complicated to me.
That's interesting. That's interesting, and it comes down to like Weber didn't want nobody to know. So what do you do then? And it comes back to the question. To me, this is one of, because we say a lot, especially regarding concussion, right? These past few years, we have learned so much in the past, 15 years now, about concussion. From the time, personally, I was in high school, at the end of the 2000 to now, it feels like a different age, completely. And this is something we hear a lot in the media, fandoms too. We are here saying we need to protect them from themselves. But on the other hand, it seems, I could be wrong, that the players do not want to be protected from themselves. And to me, that is one of the questions that I have. Like, you know, I hear you and I agree with you. On the other hand, I'm like, but he asked nobody to know. So that must, but again, this is the situation you are put in as a when you're somebody working on a training or medical staff of a professional organization.
And it's interesting, Max, because you're saying, you know, like we've learned so much about concussions, and I feel like it's because of you know, past players' testimonials at this point.
Exactly.
And in the case of Shea Weber, I feel like he has a responsibility for the younger players to talk about it. Now that he's, you know, retired, happily intronized to the Hall of Fame. At the time, he didn't want anybody to know, but I feel he needs to share his story now, because players needs to hear it from other players, and it's the only way I feel that we're going to change that culture.
But that is fascinating. And let me ask you a question regarding this. So personally, I agree with you. One of the questions I have, and I'll be curious to hear you on that, is, are we at a point, because now we know about concussions. Now we know about the problems that taking too much medication can bring later in life. Are we already at a point where players should know and now it's their responsibility, or is there still more education to be done? That is one. And two, I guess the question I would ask to you, Daph, regarding this is, okay, I agree with you, but Weber is out there saying, I'd do it all over again. So do you have the same point of view about him sharing his experience? If him sharing his experience is telling the kids, hey guys, I do it all over again, because that's part of it too.
Yeah, and I feel like when the concussed players also tell about their stories, I mean, I feel that they're saying that they would have loved to hear about other players' experience, maybe, but I feel like it's kind of the same conclusion, that maybe I would have done it all over again. And yeah, that's part of why it's complicated, because you don't want to have but I feel like he needs to share his stories, and afterwards, you know, the young players have their own mind to make, you know, decisions from themselves, starting from hearing stories here and there, and what they like about it and what they don't like about it, and just like you know, keep a fair share of what they want for themselves in a near future. But yeah, but I feel like we need a lot more of education, and it's part of the solution for changing the culture. And maybe it doesn't have to come from just players' testimonials, but also from people who are working in the health industry and can, you know, say what are the impacts, long-term impacts of this and that and this and that. But yeah, we need a lot more education. For me, it's kind of part of the solution.
Do you feel, Kay, like we are at a point where, because that's a question I ask myself a lot, like, are we at a point where players now have enough information and from today, like, they're responsible? Or do you think that, no, we're still at a point where we need to educate more?
I think we're still at a point where we need to educate a little bit more. I think one of the things is like I do feel like there's not enough about the pain medication kind of aspect of this. You know, there's that documentary, which is a very good one. But I just feel like the story needs to be out there a little bit more. I know that, like, for example, Carey Price mentioned in the athletic article that I'm talking about, that he stayed away from any medication that wasn't Advil, for his, you know, from his personal experiences, what he knew growing up, et cetera, et cetera. So that was his decision from what he'd seen. Obviously, you know, there were other things that happened, but like, that's specifically talking about medication. He had that knowledge, that seeing what happens. And I think that's partially what would be helpful, is players really, the younger ones especially, I think a little bit of it, like the older ones, like of the Shea Weber generation, there's a certain, you know, they've already put in so much that I mentioned this too, that like, I think with Shea Weber, he'd already put in so much mileage on his body that I think he knew what he was doing was going to come back later and like hurt, to, you know, say it lightly. But he just, at that point, I think he was just like, well, I'm already here. I let me try again. So that's a different like sidebar. But my kind of understanding of it and my thoughts are that, yeah, I do think we need more education, especially on the pain management side. And I think as much as we hear about concussions, I'm not sure that we're still truly talking about it from like a real, this is what happens point of view. So yeah, I agree with Daph. I think that like education could be helpful in this situation.
And also, like, can we blame him for wanting to go like all the way and just we can't. Like, maybe we would have done the same thing. Like, looking at you know, he was getting older. He was like, I maybe don't have 5 more years in me, so let's go all the way and try to win that Stanley Cup.
I think
I don't blame him.
I don't think you can blame anybody, Daph. And if I may, I also think that we have to look at it also from maybe sometimes a different perspective, as it's their job, right? And there's many jobs in the world that actually have employment hazards. If you're talking about minors that decide to be minors, they can have lung problems later on. And that is fully known because it's been hundreds of years. So there's a lot of things sometimes that are inherent to the job you are doing. Where I see a big problem is not in the hiding aspect, but in the not precise aspect of injuries. And that's become, in today's The Athletic article, the player survey, the player says, we like that it's vague. We like that nobody knows our injury. Well, if it's a bit more public, like we have seen in the NFL, and of course that is generated because of sports gambling, sports betting, that bettors wants to know what you have as an injury so they know how to bet or not. But what has created is actually longer period of absence for players, and actually going to get the surgery instead of playing injured because it is public that they have that injury. Before, you could hide a little bit. So the side effect of sports betting actually created healthier player when they're playing. If you look at the NFL this year, there's more than 40% decrease of concussion. Multiple reasons for that. It's because of the new helmet they put, but it's also because they have independent league paid analysts at every game that look at what's happening, and they have the last word. They have a veto if a player can go back to the game or not. If we're looking at independently paid analysts in the NHL that are not paid by the teams, but paid by the league or third party, that could have a veto for a player to not go back if the injury is severe enough, and if they can actually analyze the injury, maybe there it is a part of the solution. Because however we want to spin this, somebody that has a paycheck, that's as the example, the Montreal Canadiens, even if it's not conscious, subconsciously will always take the team side to the detriment of the player. So I do believe
it's a business.
it's a business. But if it's the independent party, like, no, you're not going back there. You can't even stand up. Or Bob Guiney, you got 2 broken shoulders, 2 separated shoulders. You're not going back on the ice, Bob. Okay.
That is so interesting, Kev. So for so many aspects. Number one, that circles back to the question of ethically, whether it's a doctor, therapist, training, whatever, training person, and you're paid by the team. Ethically, like, who do you serve? And that is something I am. If you imagine like league-wide training staffs who are not paid by, I know this will never happen. I'm reacting to what you just said. That could be very interesting. And number 2, you just talked about Bob Gainey. Bob Gainey is one of my favorite. For those who don't know, Bob Gainey, the legend himself, he had ice on his shoulders for like a whole playoff run. I think it was 86. But he was there for more playoff runs, so it might be, but I'm pretty sure it's 86. My dad told me that story a gazillion times, glorifying it with stars in the eyes, which bring me personally to like the climax of this discussion, which is, what is our role as fans and media members in the glorification of it? Because let's be real, most talking points surrounding Shea Weber in the past week is glorifying him for what he did. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right. It's just the way we do it. And I'm gonna say, I don't even know. I was gonna say I'm guilty of it. Am I guilty? I don't know. But I'm glorifying him too. Like, I don't know. Have you ever seen, guys, the meme that has been going these past few years? But it's a random picture, like, I don't know, like a bulldog wearing sunglasses and a leather jacket, and it will be written, guys will see this and say, hell yeah. Well, to me, like, that it's exactly that meme. Guys will see hockey players playing through a broken heart, 2 living, failing lungs, a broken foot. Oh, and by the way, he might have lost his brain. We don't know. And say, hell yeah. That's literally me. When I saw all the injuries to Weber, honestly, with all I know, with me trying to be like the scholar and being like, we should protect them, my honest reaction was, hell yeah. What a freaking man. And I don't know if that's warrior.
Right. And he scored a goal and the team won. That's what counts, right? That's what we think. But maybe the answer is somewhere in between, where in the margin is that culture. Part of it is actually helpful to give that second effort to something. But again, there's a personal line where every player has to respect their own bodies. And I think that may be where the answer is do you respect your body enough to know when you're a detriment more than a plus?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because very often we see players playing through something, and you're like, you actively may be harming the team a little bit right now with the way you're playing, because you are playing injured. We've seen it so many times.
Absolutely.
Brendan Gallagher.
He's healed. His hands are healed now. He's perfect. He's fine.
But you're absolutely right, Kay. And it's part of, the team also to take that decision. We have a perfect example maybe with the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, with Austin Matthews being injured, and it's taking a long time that we would expect it. And look, Mitch Marner is doing great. The team's not doing that bad. And they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe he can take his time. Maybe he can take a little longer.
And it comes back to culture you were talking about at the start of the discussion, Daph, because, I think it's the complete opposite. But in the NBA, we make fun of players for resting, where in reality, maybe they have it figured out.
Oh,
and at the same time, even in hockey, we have normalized goalies not playing back-to-backs. Because it's too hard on their bodies and their performance is directly affected. Whereas we have not normalized freaking Zdeno Chara played with a freaking broken jaw in the cup final. Yeah. Like, what the heck?
And it totally backlash at the NBA. I mean, they've put some rules for the time management, because teams were managing, for people who are not aware of, teams were managing their stars players' minutes. And sometimes in a game that wasn't that significant, they were benching their star players to.
They were literally not playing. Street
Absolutely. Yeah. So the NBA just made some rule about it, because we said it's a business and people are paying good money to go to those games and see those stars players playing. And so they've managed to put some kind of rules, and now it's backlashing because the stars players are all injured, and it's kind of an epidemic right now in the NBA. So you're like, them if you do, them if you don't.
Is there too many games? Should there be a bigger roster so you can actually manage load a bit better, where if you have a bit more players, like example in hockey, you got 1 or 2 or 3 players they're not playing per game, part of the active roster. Maybe if you have 6, 7 more, maybe you can do more rotation in back-to-back. So there's a lot of possible things.
There's a lot to argue about with fans. Then we'll have a lot of arguments on the internet about who should play and who shouldn't. So I guess that's good too.
But we could go on, and just like the leagues are not. They don't have any advantage of doing that.
No, nobody's gonna drop games. And but Kev, you have put the finger on it for me personally. I'm not saying I have the definitive answer here, but if it's not too many games, it's too condensed. Like back-to-back shouldn't exist in 2024. I will die on that hill. Back-to-backs in such a violent sport as hockey should not exist, but you know what? As I said, I understand the complication of it. I think in hindsight, sports like American football and soccer, who more often than not play 1 game a week, sometime more, have understood it and have made the right thing out of it. And also, you could say from a business perspective, but that's a whole other discussion. But I do think that a sport as violent, because it is, as hockey, should consider at least managing its schedule a bit better.
Yeah, so, and we all need someone like in Gladiator. We all need a friend like Juba saying, "I will see you again, but not yet, not yet." We all need this player on the team who says, "Like, take your time, take your time."
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, that was a very interesting discussion. Let us know in the comment because as I said many times I do not know what the answer is. Like one day I wake up and I'm like, we need to protect these guys from themselves. And as I said, most days, unfortunately, I wake up and go, Shea Weber, hell yeah. Kay, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion today. It was really interesting. Catch Kay on Game Over Montreal. On the Game Over Montreal's page after every Montreal Canadiens game. That will be it for today's episode, folks. Thank you so much for joining us in. Thank you so much for sticking with us through the end. If it's not done already, please consider subscribing to Hyperdrive Hockey on Spotify and leave a 5-star review. That goes along too for Apple Podcasts or wherever you catch your podcast. And if you're on YouTube, if you enjoy what you're listening to, please subscribe to Game Over Network's channel. Leave a comment, drop a like, all of that, and we will talk to you in the next episode of Hyperdrive Hockey. Thank you, everyone.